Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravela, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Ravi Tai. He is CMO and longtime medical affairs leader who's going to share pearls of wisdom and secrets on how to be successful in field medical. Awesome conversation. You guys are really going to like this. Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram, and check us out on MSL Talk Live, which is typically the first Tuesday of every month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And that's on LinkedIn Live, so you can actually go back and revisit those episodes. It's awesome. Check it out. And thank you guys for joining us. Hey there, Ravi. Thanks for joining me, my friend. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me. I know it's been a while, but it's about time we do this.
Listen, guys, for those of you listening, I've been asking Ravi to come on this show since I started it in March of 2020. Literally, he was like one of the first people I called. He's like, yeah, definitely. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. It's like 2.5 years later.
There you go. Hey, it's happening finally. So it's good.
It's happening. So guys, you're in for a treat. I've known Ravi for a long time. He's amazing. And he's gonna drop some incredible knowledge on you guys. So, but before we get into that, Ravi, why don't you do an intro? Let everybody know who you are, where you're from, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so Tom, I've known you since I was in MSL and all the way up to my current roles as CMO and things like that. Lots happened, along the way. Just in terms of background, I am a medical doctor. I'm residency trained in hospital medicine, and I also did a master's in public health. And I'm currently doing an MBA in pharmaceutical business. But I also did a very cool fellowship in research development. So just to kind of get an understanding of that side of the thing. In terms of experience, I practiced for about 5 years full-time before I joined industry. I joined as an MSL. It was a great opportunity for me to kind of explore that side of the industry. Did the role for about 2.5 years and kind of ended up heading up that MSL group, and then ended up heading up the entire medical affairs department for a fairly large company, which was acquired. And then I became the head of all of medical affairs for the larger company. Since then, I've been to multiple other companies. People can look me up on LinkedIn and know all the flows that I have gone through. A lot of changes, a lot of experiences in terms of being in. The advantage I think I have is that I've actually been in each role, so I kind of understand what is it to be a medical director, or what is it to be in regulatory. I've actually spent a stint in marketing as well as a director of medical marketing. So I kind of got that commercial side of the equation and things like that. Just overall, I think, I kind of like to inspire people, because a lot of people inspired me along the way. And that's kind of how my leadership style is very inspirational. And the way, like right now, the way I defined a CMO or a chief medical officer is, C is somebody that's commercially savvy, M is somebody that's medically competent, but then O, which is the most important part, it is somebody that can actually operationalize strategy, right? So you can have all the strategy you want, but if you can't make it happen, then it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And then on a personal note, I've been married for 20 plus years. I have 2 boys, 22 and 18. Both are heading towards that whole medical side. Hopefully both of them will be doctors, and that's the last check off that I have on my list to do.
Well, I'll tell you, man, the story is amazing, and you make it sound so easy. And when people go to your LinkedIn profile, they'll see the trajectory, the career trajectory. Right. It's just amazing. So that's why I was so excited to have you on, because you do check so many boxes, and there's so much that you can share. So I'm excited, and I think that we're going to cover a lot of ground. So let's go back to the beginning, though, because I think that coming from clinical practice into the medical affairs world, like, I don't want to skip past that. I'm curious if you could tell everyone just, how you came to that decision, how you wound up in industry, and then what advice you can give to others that are looking to be successful in that sort of transition.
No, great question. I think that's very important, because we have a lot of new people thinking about coming into the industry, and they don't know what roles, what to come into. Is it an MSL role? Is it something in research? Is it something in publications? There's always this dilemma on where do I go. In terms of my journey, I kind of tripped into it, by luck, I should say, because I had an awesome mentor friend, Dr. Robert Cortez. He was my clinic director when I was in residency, and he had joined the industry as an MSL. And he basically said, Ravi, you love to talk, you love to eat, you love to meet people, you love to interact. This is the perfect gig for you. So, I checked it out. I took a risk. I did it, and I loved it. And I loved every aspect of it. So I think the key for new people coming in is, first, you got to understand what you want and why you want it, right? And that's the key, right? So if you're just going into the industry because you heard MSL gigs are great, that's one thing. That's great. But then also being able to understand, what are you looking for? Do you want to be in a field role where you're self-sufficient and taking care of it on your own? And is that what you want to do forever? Because some people love that. I've known career MSLs who just love the thrill of that and been doing it for 20 years, and they love every bit of it. There are others like me who, for multiple reasons, can't travel as much. And I had 2 little kids, when I was an MSL, and I couldn't. And my wife basically said, "Hey, you got to find a more non-flying job, or we're done."
Yeah.
So those kinds of, there are different reasons why people do it. But I think that's the key. So I knew I wanted more than being just an MSL. I knew I wanted to manage people. I knew I wanted to be like a medical director. I knew I wanted to head up a department. So those are the key things that you need to learn.
Right. And
during that process, you kind of figure out what your strengths are. You need to figure out what your weaknesses are, right? So I learned very quickly that I knew medicine, because I came out of practice. I knew how to talk medicine, but I didn't understand the industry at all, because I'm getting into something where I had no clue. So things I did was trying to get like little rotations on the marketing side, try to understand the commercial side of the equation. What are their needs? And, things like that. The other thing also very important for even people trying to get in is do your homework. Network, right? Network is key. I know you were in a Vegas meeting, and I couldn't make it, but in the previous Vegas meeting that I was at, I met 3 or 4 people who either worked for me or I've helped them, find roles. Because the way I look at it, somebody helped me. It's my job to now give it back and try to help as many people as possible. So I've hired a lot of MSLs in my lifetime, and I've trained a lot of them. So that's kind of like, very important. So before there wasn't podcasts like this where you could go and listen and, learn from other people, before you take a plunge, kind of watch some of like Tom's videos, right? You have people from different companies at different leadership levels to tell you what to do and what not to do. So use that to your advantage before you make that plunge. And just remember, it's not always just has to be an MSL.
Right.
Because an MSL job is hard to land. Right? For multiple reasons. And I'll talk about that later if we have time. But there are multiple reasons where you can't land in an MSL role, but there is a pathway to that MSL role, either through a med info department or safety department or publications or, CRA in development. So explore those options as well, and don't get disappointed when you didn't land in that MSL role after multiple efforts.
Yeah, no, that's tremendous advice. So much to unpack in there. But what I love is, number one, you might be better off going into a starter position, maybe in clinical research or just something that would be a good entree into industry, or a precursor to industry, so that you can eventually get into that MSL role. But one of the things that you said that I want to point out is you really knew what you wanted to do. And because you knew what you wanted to do, it helped you position yourself.
Right.
And you talked to the right people, asked the right questions, you networked in the right places, and that put you in position to get to that next step.
Absolutely. Because I think, my training and ongoing experience and certifications and things I did was to get me to that path, right? Why do an MBA? I'm already in the industry. I'm in a good role. Why do an MBA? It's just so, one, I understand the business side, and also the people looking at my resume says, hey, this guy understands business as well, right? That was important. Why do a fellowship in clinical research when my career trajectory was in medical affairs? Because I wanted to learn development. I wanted to kind of at some point also have oversight over development. So went on and did that. So if you know where you want to go, then the training you pick, the education you pick, and all of those things will kind of, fall in place as well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is a very different advice I want to give to the folks that are listening to you. When somebody tells you, like, what do you want to do or something of that sort, you need to have a story. You can't say, I'm still figuring it out. And when you ask somebody for help, don't tell somebody, hey, I'm going to send you a resume. Let me know if there are any jobs I fit in for, right? It's not our jobs to go look through all of our open positions to see if you fit, right? The better thing would be to know what you want, look at all the openings that are in the company. And when you send the resume in and say, hey, I know I'm trying to get into this industry, but I understand this side of the equation. I understand this. These are the jobs that I think I would be a great fit for. And here's your resume. That helps me help you, right? That's just not just me, but any leader that you're going to approach.
Talk about that all the time. I think you have to be really intentional. I think you have to know what you want. You have to get after it. And you have to be proactive. If you're not proactive, you can't expect, nobody's coming. You can't expect people to come to you.
Right.
So awesome advice. So let's talk about MSLs. And you've played such a pivotal role in so many MSLs careers. What do you see in top performers? Top performing MSLs that really separate them from other people?
No, that's, I mean, simplest way to put it is everybody in an MSL is an MD, PharmD, or PhD. So everybody's brilliant, everybody's knowledgeable. Why do some make it and go really, really high and others don't? I think that's the clear thing that you have to think about all the time. And for me, first one is knowledge, right? Not because we get paid, really, I always tell my guys, you get paid for two things: what goes in and what comes out, right? And if you can effectively pick up knowledge, so in other words, I may hire you today for oncology, right? The company may go pick up a cardiovascular drug. I can't go out and hire another cardiovascular MSL. You need to be able to pick it up. So knowledge and understanding and that ability to pick it up is important. But I'll talk about it a little bit later, but you don't need to know everything either, right? So knowledge doesn't mean you're the most brilliant person in the room and you know everything. You also know how to use your resources appropriately. Right. So the first thing is knowledge in my mind. Second thing is confidence, right? So when you're in front of a customer and you're talking to them, they want to feel like you know what you're talking about, right? Because if I'm going to leave my patient's time and come spend some time with a medical person, I better learn something from there. So that confidence only comes with that, right? And the third thing for me is being human, right? Understand the person that you're talking to. Get their empathy. It's not always science. Most of my best relationships with KOLs have nothing to do with science, right? It's because we connected at a level in football or our kids or something. So be human, understand them, show some empathy to, what they're looking for and things like that. So, first thing, like I was saying, you got to be able to learn and you have to be able to communicate. And you need to be flexible in terms of therapy. I know certain MSLs don't want to go beyond oncology because they feel like that's their niche, right? It's great, but it's also good to have, if you want to spread your wings and go beyond, and you're just not going to be in just another oncology company, but you also want to be in a company that also has oncology, right? Then you need to have that multiple therapy area, knowledge and experience and things like that. Understanding the job, your deliverables and your responsibility, right? So you have to know what you're responsible for and you have to know what the deliverables is, that they're looking for, right? And then you also have to build yourself a good relationship network within the company, cross-functional network, because you don't know when you need them and you want to make sure that they need you as well, right? So I have great relationships with legal and compliance and regulatory. So when I have a question, I just call them up and say, hey, can I do this? Is this something that's okay to do? Or because I don't want to do it and say sorry, or, so it's better to ask them. So those relationships helps. And then most important reason, and I'm going to tell you, this is good for every new MSL that's going to come in, is know the rules of the game, right? So what I mean by that is the reason a company struggles hiring a new MSL is not because they don't think they can do the job. It's not because they don't think they're knowledgeable. They're just worried that they may do something because of lack of that knowledge that'll get the company in trouble.
Got you.
Right? So that's what holds them back. That's why certification courses that are offered out there and things like that are good for new MSLs.
Yeah.
Because what it does is, as a hiring manager tells me, at least he's gone through the program, he's got some certification, he understands the business a little bit, he understands the compliance rationale, he understands the regulatory boundaries. So I know that you're not going to get me or the company in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, I mean, if you notice, 1 or 2 years in an MSL job, you get offers like crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And again, on the other hand, they don't pick up a new person that doesn't have that experience. And it's not that you're brilliant or knowledgeable. They know that you understood the rules of the game and that you're not going to get them in trouble.
Right. No, it's true. Once you land that first role and you're in the industry for a few years, the whole course of your career changes. You become a real hot commodity.
Exactly.
And very marketable.
Exactly.
I love what you said about the importance of building strong relationships. And you also talked about how important it is to have relationships, not just externally, be able to create relationships with your KOLs, but to have relationships internally, because it's going to help your career in so many ways. So I think that that's huge. I do want to also point out, and you mentioned, PharmD, MD, PhD. What we're seeing is a lot of NPs,
absolutely,
and PAs, and clinicians,
absolutely,
and even some non-degree. I think the advanced scientific degree. There's been a little bit of a paradigm shift. So we're seeing a lot of people from the clinical world making that switch over now too, which is awesome.
No, which is great. I mean, I have it here as well. In my current role, we have a lot of nurses that are MSLs, within the group. And I think the allied health professionals bring a lot to the table of that hands-on.
Sure.
Right. Which a lot of the MD, PharmD, PhDs may not have, which are more book knowledge and scientific, especially if they haven't practiced or, are coming right out of school and things like that. So, there's a huge scope of opportunities. MSLs are, in my opinion, the wave of the future. We will talk about that. MSLs are it, as we become, things like COVID and virtual and all of these become more and more prominent, right? The more and more need for ability to interact at a medical level is going to start going up across the board.
I say it all the time on this show. There's never been a better time to be an MSL. The value proposition of the MSL has never been greater than it is right now. And it's just going to keep getting better. So getting back, we talked about some of the things that you see in top performers. What about mistakes that you might see? Are there common mistakes that you witness in MSL?
There are. And that's actually the reverse of that same coin of success, right? So if you kind of think about it, people who think that they need to know everything and they are the most knowledgeable, they are the ones who struggle, right? Yeah. So what I mean by that is it's great to know everything, but you shouldn't feel like you're not there because you don't know everything, right? Because if you're going to go in front of a KOL or a thought leader who is practiced in that specialty for 20 years and that's all he does day in and day out, and they are a KOL or a thought leader, there's no way you're going to know as much as them. It's just not going to happen. But that shouldn't be what stops you. But there are people that get pulled back because they don't feel like they're ready yet. They don't feel like they're ready yet. Right? Because they don't feel like they've gotten everything. Understanding and setting priorities is very important, which means you don't need to do it all. Mm-hmm. So the problem is that those who fail are the ones who don't understand the resources that are available. So because you're out in the field, you may not really understand all of the resources available. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you understand how your publications department is set up, if you understand how your regulatory department is set up, when somebody asks you a question, you shouldn't feel pressured to know the answer. You should very clearly be able to give it to the right people. Know how your phase 4 or, IIRs and, those groups are set up and done. So you know how to, point them to the right people. The other big mistake I've seen is people who don't advance in their career is they try so hard to outshine the other MSLs, right? And that's actually a career killer than an advantage, right? So think about it this way. If you have a territory and you're the only MSL in the territory, why do you have to outshine another MSL that's not even in your territory?
You just run your race.
Exactly. Run your race and you're going to win every time, right? Mm-hmm. But now you're running a race against somebody that's not even there. right? And so because of it, there's a lot of conversations and drama and thing that comes with it. And if I'm promoting somebody to lead a role, the last thing I need is for them to have drama or bring all of these other nuances that comes into the equation. So focus on your success and how you can shine, because as a leader, I want my department to shine, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to go to the MS to management and say, I need 2 more MSLs because, and I can't say this person's doing great or this, I have to say, I need 2 more headcounts because as an MSL department, this is what we've done. This is our accomplishments and things like that. And the more ammunition you can give your manager to be able to make those statements, the better chance you have of kind of advancing your career.
Yeah.
And then, managing your time, right? People get overwhelmed, they get burned out, right? Because they're flying all the time and because they don't know how to manage their time. So, one of the things I used to do, it's not as easy to do it anymore because that was 20 years ago, is I gave my territory people certain dates, right? And because of that, there was no back and forth time wasting between, hey, Ravi, are you available? Hey, can you come? And it was also easy for them because when they get a request, they say, yeah, Ravi's here every third, Wednesday of every month. Right. And they set my schedules up because I know that I'm going to be in their territory. So even if I'm in the field 10 days in a month, I have a packed schedule.
Yep.
Or, more than people who are out 20 days in a month who are seeing 1 or 2 people and spending more like windshield time and, and things like that. So that I think is very important. And then the last thing I would say is communication, right? Communication is not accent. It's not English. That's not what I mean by communication. Communication is conveying what your thoughts are, one, in a clear way, that's verbal, right? Mm-hmm. But there is also a lot of emotional and physical and, those types of communication that happens in a conversation that makes somebody feel like, one, you care for them, you want them, and because any doctor will see you once, guaranteed. Will they see you over and over again? Right. Is the key to how well you did or how well you're, communicating and things like that.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. And I think that by understanding what some of those pitfalls are that you just pointed out, I think it just helps people to develop and bring their game up to a whole nother level. But as people are listening to this, the other thing I want to point out and I want to ask you about is, what skills should they be focusing on to get better, to bring them to that next level?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I told you knowledge is king, right? So that's what you're hired for. Know your data, right? So like I said before, most of those folks who are in this profession are all either at the same level or doctorate level, or, you're working with similar peers. So if one is shining or one is standing out, it's because of their keen eye for the way they look at things, right? So for example, you flash a same PowerPoint presentation to a CEO versus somebody down the track, this person would have to really focus, but that CEO, 30-second glance, he tells you what's wrong, what's this, what's that. It's that being able to do that. So if anything, you have to focus on your skill, learn how to read data, learn how to interpret data, and learn how to verbalize that data. If you can do that, that's like 90% of the game, right? And then there are other things, like I said, learn how to communicate, learn those soft skills. I know we all think we're great presenters. Learn those soft skills. Simple way to do that: record yourself doing the presentation as you're presenting, just like this, right? Record yourself doing it, come back, look at it, see if you're flapping your hands around too much, or if you're using a lot of fillers and things like that. You can do it on your own. You don't need to go get a coach, but if most companies will offer you that. If one of my MSLs came and said, hey, Ravi, I would like to take a course on, I would be thrilled, right? Because for me, they're providing an additional layer of service, to their customers, right? And if I need to pay for that more than anything else, I'd be happy to do that. Learn to manage your time. Number one skill to avoid burnout. The reason that's important is because that's going to determine if you're going to get promoted, right? So what I mean by that is, if somebody comes and asks me, hey, Ravi, can you do this, right? And it's additional work. And the moment I say, oh, I got a lot on my plate, you're done, because they know you've hit your threshold for how much work you can do.
Yeah.
Right. But being able to manage that to say, yeah, no problem. I'll take it on, but let me prioritize and see what's important, what's not important, so we can hit the right timelines and things like that, makes them realize that you do have a lot on your plate, but you're still willing to. That's that time management that's important, because the moment you say you can't handle something, in my mind, I know you've hit your threshold for what you can do. So why would I put a next level role on you if it is the next level of, things like that? Build rapport with your team and management, right? Nobody wants to promote somebody that your team hates, right?
That's the truth.
And so just build that rapport, and build rapport with not just your boss, but people around you, right? Around your boss as well, because when the head of commercial goes tells my boss, Ravi is great, he did this, it has more value than your boss seeing you in action.
Yep.
Right. So make sure that those right people are, understanding of what you bring to the table, how you're important. And like I said, show your impact, but never back away from an opportunity. Learn better how to manage your priorities so those opportunities don't fall off your plate.
For sure. Yeah. And I know you are big on attitude and behavior and habits. So I want to ask you about that, because that's, when I mentioned the word skills and how do you separate yourself, I know that that's such an important piece of the equation. So I don't want to miss an opportunity to ask you about that.
Yeah. So to me, skills can be learned, skills can be taught, and skills can be something that somebody can support you with. Right. So as a manager, I feel like I can teach anybody anything. Right. So if you come to me and say, hey, Doc, Ravi, I don't understand this, or I can teach it to you. Right. But what your manager doesn't have time for is to fix your attitude or behavior.
Yeah.
Right. So it's in you to figure out what that is. And that attitude is very simple. Be empathetic towards who's in front of you and what their needs are. Right. Yeah. So if somebody doesn't know something, it's very easy to point out, you don't even know that. Right. But that doesn't solve anything other than creating a little bit of animosity between you and that person. Yeah. Right. So to more of, hey, this is actually very simple, and this is what you need to do, will kind of change their attitude towards you as well. So to me, attitude is what people look for. Like, for example, when I'm interviewing people for leadership roles, yes, I am getting a whiff into their knowledge and experience and things like that, or whatever I read in the resume, but I can't evaluate them, right, until they're actually here. But what I am looking at is, what's their attitude, what's their behavior, or will they get along with my team, will they work together, will they have a roll up their sleeve mentality, or they're going to be more of a delegator, or they're going to be a micromanager. These are the things we look for, because anybody can act in a 20-minute interview, right? So that's not difficult, right? But these behaviors and the questions that ask, and I know you do interview skills and things like that, the questions that they ask is designed to kind of show your attitude.
Yep.
Right. And if you can manage that well, it's very easy. In behavior wise, empathy really is what makes the world turn. So your behavior towards others is going to define your career. Right. And I mean, good people do good things. Therefore, they should get rewarded the right way. Right. So if you believe in that, it makes your job easy.
Well, the other thing about attitude is that's what's going to ultimately get you that job in the interview. That's going to get you that promotion. That's what gets you noticed. Right. Is when you have that positive attitude where you're likable, you're creating awesome relationships, people respond to you, you're a hard worker, you come in every day and you get things done, you inspire others, you're a team player. That all gets noticed. That's what gets people to the next level.
Exactly.
What else is there though? I know you and I talk about this all the time. What other things should people be aware of and make it a habit of to get noticed?
Yeah. Getting promoted or getting a salary raise and things like that is an art, I have to say, right? Why do some people get promoted all the time, right? Yep. Over and over. You see some people every 6 months they get a promotion, or every 6 months they get an incentive. it's an art, right? The
Yep.
reason it's an art is because they took on something that's a passive process and made it into an active process where they are constantly making their manager think about it, making their organization think about it because they're thinking about it. Those who take it in a more passive way, it's either every couple of years, every 3 years, they feel obligated to give you a raise or something. It's not because you're doing something. So key things are always think of yourself as somebody's watching you or people are watching you, the way you are, the way you act, the way you behave. So always be professional and show your best side, irrelevant of if somebody is there or not.
Yeah.
Just because you're in the field and it's just your KOL, nobody else is watching you, don't think you have, less eyes on you, therefore you can do something different. As long as you have that mentality, always make sure you do the right thing at the right time.
Yep.
Look for, we look for like competence and performance, but it's more of your ability to represent and manage with empathy and passion that gets you promoted. All of us, if you look, let's say, for example, you have 7 MSLs, right? All of them have the same set of objectives, right? All of them have the same set of deliverables. All of them are going to do that job. What differentiates it is how somebody did it, right? And was it done with more passion or compassion? Because at the end of the day, guess what? Most of them are going to get 100% because they all check the box.
Checking boxes, yeah.
Right? But then the 1 or 2 people who get a little bit more because because management always has a little bit more, right? That they can give, but it's assigned or it's for those people that we think stood out, and that's what helps you stand out. It's that empathy and passion you showed towards that particular activity or job or whatever. Finally, know your stuff, know how to communicate, bring others along with you, right? Don't, like I said, it's not a race where you're competing with other people. Everybody's in that race together. Because if my MSL departments get cut, chances are my whole department's gone. Right. If my MSL department is growing, it means my whole department did well. So bring value, understand that every one of us has an ROI, right? Everybody invested in you. Let it be money, let it be time, let it be whatever. And everyone expect a return on that investment. You should as well, right? When you invest in somebody, of course, don't do it always for some kind of like a capital reason, right? But there is some expectation. If somebody invested in you, if it's a company and they put in money, they need some return on it, because how else are they going to fund it the next year? So once you understand that, and then that you take that active role of managing your career, promotions and incentives will come automatically. Right? You don't even actually have to ask. It just falls on your plate even before you know it.
Because you'll be deserving of it.
Exactly.
You will have worked for it, and you will be deserving of it. So
yeah, because those who ask will get it because they asked, because it's not deserving, right? Those who get it on their own, even without asking, got it because they did something so extraordinary or well that the company is pleased and your management's pleased.
Right. And most often, like you said, they're doing everything well, right?
Exactly.
They're doing everything just a little bit better, or maybe a lot better than some of the other folks.
Yeah, and as management, it's actually hard to evaluate people because everybody's doing well. Everybody's a top performer. So you're looking for these little differences to kind of put them over that edge.
Yeah. So last question I've been asking this a lot lately, just because I think people want to know what the future is going to look like. But so what do you think the MSL of the future looks like, and where?
No, great question. I think, as I mentioned before, MSL is the future, right? MSL careers are the future. Medical affairs is the future, because if you think about what we do, we generate data that people need to make their decisions. We assimilate data. We figure out how do you take that data and put it in the right format. Is it a publication? Is it a presentation? And then we finally disseminate that data, right? And data is king, as I said before. So the reason MSLs are the future is because, because of COVID and because of all these things, our work has changed. There are not a lot of reps out there anymore. There are not a lot of, people knocking on doctors' offices and doors. So when these doctors have queries and questions, they want to go to a medical person directly, right? And they want to be able to have those conversations. Be flexible and evolve. So what I mean by that is be flexible in the sense of if a doc says, hey, I don't have time to meet today, I can just do a phone call, do it. If the doc says, hey, I would prefer a WebEx over you having to come into my office, do it. Evolve your technology, evolve your knowledge, evolve in the way you communicate, that information, and be flexible during that process as well, because the companies are still trying to figure out what that next MSL should look like.
Yeah.
What is that? And they want people that are willing to go with it and try different things and, evolve with them to give the thing. The way I look at it is irrelevant of what changes, there are certain variables that doesn't change. These are the constants. First one is knowledge. They're hiring you because you need to know your product. You need to have the knowledge. You need to have that mastery of it.
Mm-hmm.
Second is communication. Like I always say, what goes in has to come out. That's what we train you for. Mm-hmm. So if you can learn it, but you can also verbalize it and communicate it, you're a solid asset to an organization. Execute, create a territory plan, get through it. You need to learn how to operationalize it. If you can't do it, you probably have a full operations department that can help you. Have passion, right, in what you do. Because when you talk and people feel that passion and love and drive and that you love what you do, they'll line up behind it, whatever it is,
no
right?
doubt.
But if you're just reciting whatever you read or just, without that passion, it doesn't get you anywhere. Finally, this is my pet peeve, is be empathetic. Yeah. Understand other people's problems, help people out. If somebody is out because they have some issues at home, help them out. Jump on a call, do the call for them, because that's what gives you that next. Management knows these things.
Sure.
They look at these things. You may assume nobody's noticing your work, but no work gets unnoticed. It all comes out at some point. And the good ones will always outshine the rest, and their career will just keep going.
Amazing. So true. You're awesome. And you know what? If anybody listening doesn't feel your passion, then they missed the whole thing. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because you are so passionate about what you do and about this space. And you're an ambassador for medical affairs, just your career in and of itself. So I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for coming on. We'll have to do it again one of these days. And and guys,
and thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for what you're doing for this community. Because, like I said, we didn't have this resource before. It's an amazing resource, and I recommend people listen to it and take advantage of it.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend, and thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for sharing, and appreciate you all.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss episodes in the future, and feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.